Last video, we implemented the very first building block of our collection view, and that was our custom follower cell. Over the next couple videos, we're going to break up building the actual collection view because there's a lot going on here. And instead of creating like an hour-long video, I decided to break it up into a couple different sections so that we can focus on each kind of task, because we're going to have the initial setup of the collection view. We're going to discuss the collection view flow layout and create our custom 3-column grid. Then we're going to talk about the diffable data source, get all that set up, get the collection view working, and then after that we're going to come back in and clean up the follower list VC, because remember back to that sawdust analogy, it's going to be a mess and we're going to clean it all up at the end. So that's what's going to happen over the next couple of videos. We're going to break it up, so let's get started. So heading over to our follower list VC, the first thing we got to do is initialize our collection view. Var collection view is going to be of type UICollectionView. We can force unwrap that because we're going to configure that right away in view.load in a configure method that we're about to write. And the reason we're declaring it up here with our variables is because there's other functions that we're going to write later in the course that are going to have to access collection view. So like I just mentioned, we're going to create our configure method on that collection view. So func configure collection view. So the first thing we want to do in this configure method is to initialize our collection view, and I'll tell you why in a second. So collection view, because normally I say the very first thing you want to do is view.add subview. Well, this time we need to initialize the collection view first. So collection view equals UI collection view, and we get the autocomplete on the initializer. We want to initialize this with a frame and a collection view layout. So the frame is actually just going to be view.bounds. So we don't really have to constrain our collection view if we want it to fill up the whole view, because we're basically saying, hey, the frame of the collection view, no matter what size the view is, you just fill up the view, and the view fills up the whole screen on all the phones. So we're going to fill up the whole view, and then the collection view flow layout we're going to pass in is just the default UI collection view flow layout and initialize it. And we're going to come back, like I mentioned earlier, and create our own custom flow layout that we're going to replace that with. But for now, so Xcode doesn't yell at us, we're going to put that in there as a placeholder. Now we want to do view.add subview, and that's collection view. And the reason we wanted to initialize the collection view first, because if we did view.add subview first, our collection view would be nil, because we haven't initialized it yet, so there'd be nothing there. So you have to initialize the object, and then you can use the object. Like I said, if we did this one first, we would be trying to use the object before we initialized it. So can't be doing that. So now let's configure the collection view.background color. And usually it's going to be system background, like all the other stuff. But for debugging purposes, we're going to use it's kind of been our debugging color, right? Because when we run this, we want to see the pink background to make sure like it's there, right? If we just did system background, we wouldn't know if it was really there or not. And then the last thing we need to do for now is register the cell. So collection view.register, and you see there's a couple different kinds of register you can do, but we want to register the cell class, and the cell class we want to register is follower cell.self and with reuse identifier. Now remember, we set this on the follower cell. If I go back there, remember we set it up here, static let reuse ID equal follower cell, and because it's a static variable or constant, we can access it like this, follower cell.reuse ID. And that's going to pull in that string. And that is the setup for now, just the initial setup. Let's make sure we call this. And you know what, while we're here, so call configure collection view. This view to load is bothering me, right? Remember I said we're going to do a lot of cleanup in a future video. I at least want to clean up the view to load. This just triggers me. I don't like it. So real quick, let's do that. Let's create a function called configure view controller. Figure view controller, and we're going to yank out the background color, the navigation controller stuff, because that's specific to this view controller. And do Command V there, and then make sure we call it before we forget. Configure view controller. And then lastly, this network call. Again, this network call isn't 100% done yet. We still got to do weak self, and there's a lot more stuff that goes in here, but I do want to yank it out for now. So we'll do func get followers. No, not a space. And paste this in here for now. And then now you're going to start to see the view to load read like a list of commands. I did a video about this. Maybe you haven't seen it. So I'll go ahead and go through my little spiel again real quick. So get followers. And again, these are like temporary like placeholder names for now. Once we come back and redo everything on this, we'll elaborate on this. But for now, I wanted this looking at least neat for me to work on. But again, back to the view to load spiel. I like my view to loads to read like a list of commands, right? I don't like to have any logic in my view to load. I mean, sometimes there's like minimal logic, right? Just like I said before, there's no absolute rules. You know, sometimes I break that rule, but for the most part, I like my view to loads to read just like a list of command, because I think that gives you a good idea of what's actually going on the screen. If you have a clean view to load, right? You can be like, hey, okay, we're configuring the view controller, we're configuring the collection view, and then we're getting followers. Like, it's nice and neat. And then same thing, if you go to the search VC, hey, well, there's a little bit of logic here, but again, not an absolute rule. You know, we're configuring the logo, configuring the text field, configuring the call to action button, creating dismiss keyboard, right? Everything is just logically in order. You know, sometimes, don't get me wrong, sometimes you can't make it that neat and tidy, but I try to strive for that. Again, because it just makes your code more easy to reason about, in my opinion. If I can just look at your view to load and just see, it's like a table of contents in a book, right? And if I wanted to dig deeper into chapter 2, configuring the collection view, you know, I can command click on that, jump to definition. Here I am. Now I'm in chapter 2, digging into that specific section. Whereas if this was just nothing but logic, you have to like, it takes time to kind of like read through all that logic and figure out what exactly you're looking for. So again, that's kind of a good analogy I like to use, is it's like a table of contents for your view controller, and it's nice and organized. So that's my view to load spiel. And let's run this to see if we get that pink background on the collection view. So let's enter a name, SALLEN0400, get followers. There we go. Okay. Well, I was like, what is this? Remember, we're still printing out all of our followers with this print statement here on the follower list VC here. Yeah, right here, this print statement. So I got scared for a second. I thought that was a bunch of errors, but it's not. Let's go back to our simulator. So yeah, we have our background is pink, fills up the whole view. So we are good to go there. That's not the look we're going for, obviously. But again, this is the initial setup, the foundation, if you will, of our collection view. In the next video, we're going to talk about the collection view flow layout, to how we're going to get this, you know, three column grid that you see on the screen. There's a little bit of custom work that needs to go there. And then after that, we're going to do the diffable data source and plug all this together, and we should have a working collection view in a few videos. See you in the next one.